Hello everybody, welcome to your Wednesday edition. Happy hump day. It is the TraderMerlin show. Hello Les Gold from Cape Canaveral. I think you had a nice launch this morning, did you not? Good to have you with us. He says, still listening, still learning and loving it. Well, we're always learning and I'm happy to help out any way I can. So if there's stuff you want to know, just send in the questions. Les, I love having you. Sue, Big Eb, Thomasina, good to see you guys as well. Today will be a rather interesting topic, I personally think. It stems from a discussion that we had the other day. At the end of yesterday's show, actually, a question came through from one of our viewers. And that question was this one. It says, why are companies like Tesla or MicroStrategies, along with institutions, focusing on Bitcoin? That was from Lisa G. So Lisa, I know you're not with us live today, but you will get a chance to see this on the archives. This is what I'm going to be looking at here. Why are companies buying Bitcoin? Love the graphic because it almost feels like they're in secrecy right now. But I'll start things off with a basic overview of the way that companies function. Obviously, as companies grow, as they return earnings, they're keeping money on their books in the form of cash. Now, that cash, some of it is going to be required to be held in the balance sheets by the SEC. So, for example, they may have specific loan obligations or debt obligations or reasons why they have to keep a percentage of that in cash. But a lot of times it's there to have on hand in case they want to buy some merger acquisition target. That said, a lot of these companies have some pretty significant balance sheet budgets in cash, and why would you keep it all in cash? So it was a great question, and we'll dive into it by looking first fundamentally the difference between the dollar and Bitcoin. Now, when you talked about why are companies buying Bitcoin, it's not just Bitcoin, that's the public one. What you're seeing written in some of the documents to the SEC, so in order to do this, these companies like Tesla had to file a document with the SEC saying, hey, look, we are now going to be pursuing some digital assets and gold, etc., but they have to let the SEC know that that's where they're going to be headed with their money. Now, to do that, obviously they just fill out some forms, but it's not just Bitcoin, it's digital assets in general. So it could be Ethereum, Litecoin, some other digital asset out there. So let's look at the graphics here, and we will start our show. Oh, Lisa, good to have you with us. You get to see it live today. Whoop, whoop. We're not doing a Leroy Jenkins today, Brendan. If you guys don't know the Leroy Jenkins story, if you're a gamer, go to YouTube and type in Leroy Jenkins, one of the best gaming moments of all time. All right, so I'm going to start things off with the Pepsi challenge here. And I apologize if these graphics aren't quite symmetrical, a little bit off, or I have spelling mistakes. I was scrambling to get this done in time for today's show because I don't have anybody working for me except myself. So let's start off with the basic comparison here of the US dollar versus Bitcoin. Now, the first piece you want to look at here is simply supply. This is one of the major things, of course, I like to focus on in general because I'm a believer in supply and demand in just about every aspect of our lives. Whether I'm looking at buying an iPhone, an energy bar, or a bag of ice, supply and demand is really the driving force behind it all. So, when we look at supply, there are some pretty big considerations here to think about with regards to the US dollar versus Bitcoin. Now, some of you already know this stuff, but I just want to start off with the M3 money supply for the United States. Now, these charts that you're going to see aren't quite the same. The reason for that is this is produced by the Fed, which is the Federal Reserve, and it's showing me data going all the way back into 1960. Now, the Bitcoin price chart obviously does not go back to 1960 since it was started in 2009. However, you can see a pretty clear trend here. If you don't, maybe you need to go invest in some glasses and talk to an optometrist because this is a massive uptrend that doesn't show any signs of slowing down. In fact, it's actually accelerating faster than this. This is as of the last reading that the Fed would give us. Right now we're in 2021 and that current one has not been updated, which would show a further spike since we just got a $2 trillion, now another potential $2 trillion of stimulus. So this dilution of money supply is key. What this means is the more of something that there is, the less desirable it becomes. So say, for example, you've got, let's say the LaFerrari, right? It's the flagship Ferrari that they make. It's an absolutely unbelievable machine. Runs, about $1.6 million. Good luck getting your hands on one. It's the scarcity that makes that car so amazing. Now imagine if LaFerrari was about as common as a Honda Accord. Would it still be worth $1.6 million? No, there's a certain allure, a machismo. Those guys who have really small equipment driving around in their big-ass Ferraris thinking that they're cool. You know, it's a compensation factor. If it was as common as a Honda Accord, it would not be $1.6 million worth, and people be like, oh, whatever. Oh, there goes another LaFerrari. Big deal. It's scarcity that makes things interesting. It makes them desirable. So with the US dollar, it's actually becoming less desirable because it's flooding the market with this currency. And mind you, the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, forcefully put in place after World War II. However, not two. Well, I get my history parts mixed up, but certainly put in place after, I think it was World War I, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't remember. Definitely, I'm not a history buff. However, it was put in place after our last major conflict, and the reason for that was we needed a stable currency, and we were the shining light out of the strongest out of all of them. That doesn't mean that we will be the reserve currency forever, and you're already starting to see some breakdown there as our dollar is being devalued, drifting lower and lower and lower, that a lot of other countries are going, well, wait a minute, why does the US dollar have to be the reserve currency? Why couldn't it just as easily be the euro or the yuan or things like that? So there are some problems there with regards to our status. It is not a guaranteed thing. There have been other reserve currencies of the world, and there is chatter about that changing as we speak. So let me go back to the charts here and show you the US dollar supply has been going up like crazy. Is there a ceiling on this? We all know the answer. There is no ceiling on this. It could continue to go up forever and ever and ever. You know, right now, if you look at the M3 money supply, and that's what this chart is, the M3 money supply, guys, is showing you all of the money in circulation, plus all the securities, plus all the bonds. This is the broadest measure you have. It's tipping over $20 trillion right now in money supply. And if you go back into just the year 2000, we were at 5. I mean, that's a monstrous rate, increase there in the money supply. That is hurting the dollar. Now, yes, of course, Brendan, the SEC still thinks that it's there, the center of the universe. Yeah, and they'll continue until they're not. So the supply issue changes here when you look at Bitcoin. This is what is called an emission curve. This is how Bitcoins come to market. We've had discussions on this program about miners and the role that miners play. Part of that role is to create Bitcoin. The red line that you see here dropping aggressively, that is the number of Bitcoins being produced, meaning how many are left. So right now, the reward in Bitcoins to solve one block of data is 6.25. At the beginning in 2009, it was 50 Bitcoins. Then it dropped to 25, then it went to 12 and a half, and then it went to 6 and a quarter, which is where we are at today. This part, actually, this line does look kind of weird here, but that's where we're at today. Anyway, this blue curve is the one that's important. That's showing you how many Bitcoins are in circulation. And of course, we aren't at this point yet. But as we get out into the late 2020s, I believe 2140 is when it actually maxes out. Then you will have all 21 million Bitcoins in circulation. The key here is there won't be more than 21 million Bitcoins. And I always contend this argument that I believe there's actually be much less than 21 million because there is what's called destruction. You've got that poor bloke out in the UK who's digging through a garbage dump right now trying to find a hard drive that's got $300 million on it. Read another article about some IT guy who has about $400 million on a hard drive that he can't find anymore or get access to. So it's crazy when you only have a limited amount what supply and demand does to that equation. So when we look at the cryptocurrency space, I'm trying to switch my monitors up here today. You look at that table right here. This is where we are right now. It's 2021. We're at about 18 million plus Bitcoins. That's where we're at. So we still have a little bit of new creation, but a bulk of all Bitcoins have already been created. There's less than 3 million left to be ever created over the course of time. Now, if we look at that supply equation, we could make the argument that the dollar has unlimited supply and Bitcoin only has 21 million. And again, I think that, as like Big Eb just types in the chat, 21 million minus 4 million destruction equals 17 million in reality. And I would say that that number will continue to grow. It will continue to grow because people will forget their private keys. They lose a hard drive, their computer crashes, they haven't backed up their data. That is gone forever. So it's critical that if you are in that Bitcoin space and you are keeping them locally on cold storage, on a paper wallet, on a Trezor or Ledger, that you back up all your information so you don't lose it like these people have. And it's easy to do. trust me, I've lost Bitcoin and I haven't lost Bitcoin, I've lost Litecoin. Next, we go from supply to the trend. Okay, and don't worry, this is all setting up the equation or the formula, the substantiating evidence, which will make you understand why these corporations are buying into Bitcoin. And we might see a huge change in that next week, and I'll fill you more in here in a second. So let's talk about trend. With regards to trend, here is the trend of the purchasing power of the US dollar, meaning what does it buy you? Now this goes back to 1900, so you're looking at basically 21 years, right? And they use the axis point here of 100 on the left-hand side, okay? That's meaning $100. So if you had $100 in 1900, it bought you $100 worth of goods and services. Now, as you go forward here to where we are today, it's right around $3, meaning that's a drop of 97% of your purchasing power. 97% of your purchasing power. Anything loses 97% of your value. My question is, where was your stop loss? And I believe that's part of the reason we are seeing these corporations buy into digital assets, because they don't want to see the depreciation of the US dollar impact them anymore. Now, one thing that is notable here, I'm going to put a black line on your screen right there. That is when the Fed was created. So since the Federal Reserve was created, that's when the acceleration to the downside really happened for the US dollar and the purchasing power of it. It's embarrassing. Now, of course, most of us weren't around in 1910. If you were, congratulations, you made it to 110 years old. But in that period of time, to have that lack of purchasing power, destruction of your dollar's buying power, should be worrisome. And if trend is any indication of future, well, do you see this changing? I don't see it change. It might change a little bit over time, but it's certainly not going to accelerate up, because a huge purchasing power of the US dollar would actually hurt our economy. So that's the purchasing power of the US dollar. And of course, we have all seen this one. This is the purchasing power of Bitcoin going forward. Now, of course, today was down pretty substantial, but these swings are what we're going to experience. Could it drop to 30,000? Sure, it could. But what we're seeing is a steady increase, and actually a parabolic increase in the purchasing power. So part of the consideration that I believe Elon Musk and Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy are making is, I don't want to be holding a lot of assets in something that's just going down historically and will probably continue. I want to hold assets in something that's going to be appreciating. This is one component. It's like the trend is your friend. Why am I going to hold dollars, which I'm somewhat required to based off the SEC regulations? Why do I hold those when I could buy something else that might be appreciating? So going back to my table here, you've got the trend for the US dollar. I would think we can all agree is down, and Bitcoin is up. Our next one here is global dominance. Okay. Yes, Brendan says the chart of the USD basically shows the central bank buying everything. And I think that those two kind of go hand in hand, right? Let me see if I can bring these back up here and show you real quickly the difference. But if you look at, where's the chart? If you look at this chart here, which is the purchasing power of the US dollar, and you make a mental note of what that looks like, and you compare that to the production of money supply, I think it's very clear why we're seeing the dollar just lose value. And it goes right into this concept of we have so much extra supply, the dollar is becoming less valuable. It's basically making it so abundant that, who cares anymore? It's not a desired asset for foreign investments, and that's historically been what's helped our country stay so strong. All right, good comment there. Thank you for that one, Brendan. All right, let me go back to my slide because I had a table going here with some numbers on it, and that was this one. All right, so as far as global dominance, we talked briefly about this one. Right now, the US dollar is dropping with regards to its global dominance, right? People aren't that pleased with the dollar or the US political system. You're seeing other currencies do slightly better, even though John O'Donnell would make the argument that the US is the prettiest girl at the ugly girl dance. I still think that's such an offensive saying. Aren't we in a overly political sensitive era? I can't say those types of things. Anyway, it's the slowest horse of the glue factory or something like that. Whatever. Global dominance is dropping, and I would make the argument that Bitcoin is growing. I think right now it's the 7th largest currency in the world. And what's interesting here is, let's go back to the conversation of reserve currency. If you look at the dollar as reserve currency that the world established many years ago, that can obviously change, and I believe it is changing because of the devaluing that we've been doing to the dollar. It doesn't really help global assets. Now, if you look at digital assets, let's say Bitcoin, for example, and we could all argue that the Bitcoin's not going to be, quote unquote, a currency. It's more of a digital asset. A currency would probably be something more like Ripple or Ethereum or EOS or something that's faster transactions. Regardless, let's assume that there becomes a digital asset that becomes the reserve currency. To me, that's the path we're headed down. And I think in the next 5, 10, 15 years, you'll see the reserve currency will be a digital asset that's not centrally controlled. It'll be a decentralized global currency. Bitcoin started the trend, and one may step up that's even more efficient and better for that role. But to me, that's where it's headed because of the ability for one country to completely manipulate a currency, as our Fed and central bankers have done. That provides a lot of risk. And I think most businesses around the world would rather have something that might be more free-floating for international trade, etc. So to me, that's a big piece here is the global dominance. And I see the US dollar's global dominance is shrinking. Now, continue to go on. If we look at manipulation is, I don't even think heavy is strong enough to say that manipulation for the US dollar. It's part of the dollar. It is what the dollar is. It is the most manipulated currency in the world. Now, can Bitcoin be manipulated? I put here minimal. Now, some of you are going to say, no, it can't be manipulated, but yes, it can. It can be manipulated by big sellers coming into the market, selling all at once and creating a significant move one way or another. That's a little bit different than the constant barrage of devaluing and keeping interest rates near zero, or doing Operation Twist, or all these different tasks that the Fed is doing to help prop up the dollar or drop the dollar depending on what their objectives are. So you don't get that type of manipulation with Bitcoin. And I think that if I remember correctly, that was the last one there. So that brings up the question again, goes back to Lisa, which is why are companies buying Bitcoin? All right. I'm going to show you something here. You don't have to read this all. I went through the filing that Elon Musk did to make the statement to the SEC that they were going to be buying Bitcoin. Now, if you're a geek like me, you might enjoy this. There's some interesting things in here. I'll put it in the chat. This is the document that was filed with the SEC. You can see it's the sec.gov site. I just put it in the chat there. It's the 10K that Tesla filed in February, I think it was February 8th of this year, stating some very important points which will help you understand why they're buying it based off a lot of the information I just presented. So here's what we've got. Let's go back to this one. I highlighted in bold the parts that were interesting. I don't expect you to read all this, guys. There's too much information here, and especially for the show, let's keep things moving. He says, in the filing, I say he. I always reference it's Tesla. Tesla says, we transact business globally in multiple currencies and have foreign currency risks related to our revenue, cost of revenue, operating expenses, and localized subsidiary debt denominated in currencies other than the US dollar. Currently, primarily Chinese yuan, euro, Canadian dollar, and British pound. So what he's saying right there is, look, we're doing international business all over the world, and we have exposure to other currencies other than the dollar, the yuan, the British pound, the euro, and the Canadian dollar. So that's starting to become an issue for them because they've got a lot of money in one currency, and of course their headquarters is in the United States, so they're at some point going to convert back to US dollars. There's a forex, a currency risk here, which is why the currency markets exist. That said, when there's constant manipulation like this, that could hurt them because as they continue to drop the dollar, that actually makes it good for Tesla, right? The weaker dollar, the better it is because when they convert their foreign dollars back, or foreign currencies like the yuan, the euro, the Canadian dollar, and British pound, back into US dollars, they actually get more US dollars, so it will impact their bottom line. But as we've seen since January 1st of this year, the dollar has actually been rising fairly quickly. And if that happens, all of a sudden when they tried to repatriate those British pounds back in US dollars or the yuan back in US dollars, they're buying less. So let's say that they sold a Tesla in, I don't know, I'm making this up, but in London for the equivalent of $100,000, right? The equivalent of. But when they import back that currency and convert it back, let's say it's only worth $95,000. They have a 5% loss just on the currency exchange. So it's in Tesla's best interest to hedge their bets. And that's in fact what he says down here at the bottom. He says, moreover, while we undertake limited hedging activities intended to offset the impact of such currency transaction exposure, it is impossible to predict or eliminate such impact. As a result, our operating results may be harmed. So they're very aware that it's the dollar and currency trading that could impact them. So what they said in another statement, actually earlier on in this one, is this. Tesla says, we may invest a portion of such cash in certain alternative reserve assets, including digital assets, Brendan, get your hat on and start cheering for joy. It says gold bullion, gold exchange traded funds, and other assets as specified in the future. Thereafter, we invested an aggregate $1.5 billion in Bitcoin under this policy and may acquire and hold digital assets from time to time or long term. Okay, so that obviously is Tesla saying, we're going in, here SEC, we want to be transparent, we're letting you know what we're doing. To me, this is pretty important because I think that a lot of people in the investing world were thinking that this was a gimmick, that this was a scam, it was a ploy by Elon Musk to pump cryptocurrencies. But you'll notice right in there, he's opened the doorway to other things. So yes, right now he's invested in Bitcoin, and we'll look at those numbers here in a second. But he's also talked about gold, which is usually, historically, a hedge against inflation. It's an area to go to when the doo-doo hits the fan economically and people freak out. They go to gold. And interestingly enough, he opened the door for Tesla to say, hey, we can buy gold bullion, we can go buy gold ETFs, basically GLD now. He basically said right there, we can buy GLD and maybe even mining ETFs like GDX and GDXJ. So it opens the door for them to get into all sorts of different spaces. And I think that that's powerful because you have to put yourself in the position of Tesla. I've got $19 billion sitting in cash. Now, we would all love to make that statement that you have $19 billion sitting in cash. But let me ask you, if you had $100,000 sitting in cash, is that the right thing to do? And I'm going to let you guys answer this one. Let's say you're in a pretty good financial situation, your debt obligations are met, and you have $100,000 sitting in cash in your bank account, in your savings account right now, making less than 1% interest. Is that the right thing to do with that money? I'll let you type in an answer and wait. I'll stall here for a second. But to me, the question becomes, if my operating expenses for, let's say, 3 to 6 months are $100,000, then yes, I should keep that $100,000 in the bank. But most of us don't have a $100,000 expenditure for, let's say, 6 months worth of living. Let's say that your living expenses for the next 6 months are $20,000. Then that means you have $80,000 that don't need to be there, and they're making 1%. Why bother? Find something else that could get you a greater rate of return. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin is that, right? Bitcoin can be extremely volatile. As you saw today, whole crypto space took a big nosedive today. Well, over the last week, it's shot up exponentially. It's been awesome. Maybe that's not the right investment, but the point here is, could we be putting our money into something else that would maybe gain us a greater rate of return than the savings account? And I think we'd all agree that the answer is yes. Right. And Lifesong says, better to speculate with Bitcoin than US dollar. And I think that's what Elon Musk is thinking. I think Elon Musk is looking at it from the perspective of what I just showed you. If we look at Bitcoin versus the dollar, here is a new technology with Bitcoin that is becoming much more accepted. It's now being accepted by certain banks. It's being accepted by different companies for purchases. You've got PayPal, Twitter. It's now more mainstream. It's no longer taboo. It has not been hacked yet. And of course, the government doesn't like this. But Elon, I think, did a great service to the whole industry by legitimizing it and saying, you know what? It's just an investment vehicle for me. Now, let's talk about how much he has made on this one. So let me show you some other fun charts. I found this one. You guys might like this. If you go to a website called bitcointreasuries.org, it will show you the number of companies who are currently holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets and to what extent. I have to say this is speculative here because they don't have to disclose everything right away. Obviously, when they file their financial statements with the SEC, they need to show where they're at, what they're invested in. So we may not know this until they report earnings. I'll get to that in a second. Oh, that was a good mic drop right there, but now I'll wait. So if you look at this one, there's two companies here that we've been talking about for quite a while, and that is MicroStrategy and Tesla. Now, I want you to focus on the top one. See if I can highlight this bad boy. There you go. So in blue, you got MicroStrategy, and I apologize if that's kind of hard to see. I know some of you on your handheld devices. Well, I'll read it for you. So MicroStrategy, which I believe Michael Saylor is the guy who's been running that one, has purchased $2.2 billion, that's their cost basis, worth of Bitcoin. That's 91,579 Bitcoin sitting on their balance sheet. Now, presently, the value of that Bitcoin that they purchased is $5.1 billion. So basically, they're a 2.3 to 1 rate of return. Now, What's weird about this one is if you look at the MicroStrategy filing, notice this number right here. 81% of MicroStrategy's market capitalization is Bitcoin. This should scare the hell out of anybody who is petrified about Bitcoin and say this company has way too much exposure. Basically, this is a Bitcoin proxy. So for those of you who are asking what company should you buy if you want to buy Bitcoin, buy MicroStrategy. Their 81% of their market capitalization is the value of Bitcoin itself. That's how much they hold. And he's made no qualms about it. He's saying anytime he has any money extra, he is buying Bitcoin. Now, what we have here is a different story. If you look at MicroStrategy, which is Michael Saylor, I hope I pronounced his name right. He is almost evangelical Bitcoin. He believes Bitcoin is the greatest thing to ever happen to humanity, and he goes on all these tours promoting, talking about Bitcoin. Now, I do see a lot of merits for Bitcoin, a lot of positive things. I'm a believer, maybe not to the extent that Saylor is. However, he puts himself at huge risk by having 81% of his company's market capitalization just in Bitcoin alone. So subject to some very, very big swings. Now, if we go to number 2 on this list, which was Tesla. Now, remember, Tesla had $19 billion balance sheet. They bought $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, which is what, roughly 8%, somewhere in there, something like that. It's definitely not as much as what Saylor is doing. However, notice that the market capitalization of Tesla, Bitcoin represents only 0.3% of that. That obviously is much better. It means that Tesla is not going to be as adversely affected by a big sell-off in Bitcoin or a huge rally up. So I think Tesla's doing the right thing here and simply diversifying their assets and hedging slightly against any potential or current ongoing sell-off in Bitcoin. Now, you got to love this. Elon Musk and Tesla. Why did I say Elon Musk? Tesla should just be called Elon Musk. It should be the car company, just change it to Musk. Anyway, they're already up $1 billion on the amount of Bitcoin they purchased. Right now, their value holdings as of today is $2.58 billion. That's almost doubled their holdings. Pretty amazing. Where do corporations hold their Bitcoin? Presumably not on Ledger or Coinbase. No, that's not true. So it's a great question, Rob. So what happened is, and this is where it gets really exciting and leads into the discussion for next week with regards to Coinbase's IPO. Coinbase has an institutional division, which they've made it very clear to Elon Musk. They were tweeting out on his site saying, look, if you want to buy a bunch of Bitcoin, we'll do it for you. So I don't know 100%, but I'm going to say 95% sure that Tesla's Bitcoin are sitting on Coinbase's balance sheet. That's my assumption. On a commercial, they're holding them. So, again, here's that exchange risk. I'm pretty sure they're going to be safe now, but you never know. But yeah, it's my guess is they're not holding it themselves. My guess is they're just keeping it at Coinbase because they don't want to deal with any of that. They don't want to deal with any of that undue risk. So here you go, Lisa. Here is the spreadsheet. You'll notice there's some other big names on here. Square, right? Obviously, digital payment system. They have a little bit more exposure to Bitcoin than Tesla, just from a percentage basis, meaning that the amount of their market capitalization derived from Bitcoin. Right now, they have 8,000 Bitcoin at Square for a tune almost of $500 million. So we can scroll through here, and there's a lot, but it really is not an extensive list, right? Some of this, you see the Grayscale Trust here. They say they got $36 billion worth of Bitcoin over leveraged right now. This is why you're seeing the discrepancy between GBTC and the price of Bitcoin. They because this is a trust, there's a lockup period where people cannot sell. I think it's 30 days or 90 days. There's a weird little nuance to a trust, which is why they're fighting so aggressively to turn Grayscale Trust into an ETF, because the lockup period is not there. But these are, you see a lot of different ETFs potentials down here. Some of these are not in the US, some of these are going to be in Toronto and Canada exchanges, etc. But there are a lot more. Right now, 654,000 Bitcoin are being held by his Grayscale Trust. That's 3% of all supply. That is pretty amazing. Brendan says CZ from Binance. If you guys don't know CZ, check him out on Twitter. He's the guy that runs Binance. He says he's 100% in crypto. He doesn't own a house or a car. I find that hard to believe. You don't own a car. You got to get around. And was he Ubering everywhere? Yeah, anyway. So I thought you might find this interesting, and why I think this is very compelling and showing that MicroStrategy, Tesla, Square, most of these are in the digital space here going forward. For example, you have Marathon Digital Holdings. Here's Coinbase, which doesn't exactly show all their numbers here. It's question marked, right? So I don't know if I really trust everything that's at Coinbase Global Holdings. You got Galaxy Digital, you got Bitcoin Group SE, Hut 8 Mining. A lot of these are, some of the names you've mentioned, like Riot Blockchain. They're in here as well. Right now they've got about $7 million purchase value of Bitcoin. It's worth $65 million right now at this point. But this list, in my opinion, will get much, much bigger. Next week is a big one for this. The reason we're going to see, I think, a more of a pop next week is this. You saw the numbers that Coinbase posted for their earnings not for earnings, but they posted on their latest earnings because I think they now are disclosing it. It was huge. It was just a massive number with regards to earnings blowout. They were, what was it? $730 million in revenues, profit? Let me get the one. I'll look it up right here. They made a profit between $730 million and $800 million on revenue of approximately $1.8 billion. That is a pretty significant number and is much bigger than expected. So what that means is the IPO, which is expected to happen on April 14th, and I believe will happen, all of a sudden people are expecting the average share price of Coinbase to be through the roof. I'm hearing numbers up to $450 per share for Coinbase. Bottom line is stay away from it on opening day. That said, this popularity and what's happening with Coinbase and the ability for them to have such amazing earnings is going to seep through to a lot of these other companies out there, and I think may rekindle that fire under cryptocurrencies, the asset class as a whole, digital assets, and pump them up even more. Now, Elon Musk is obviously very, very vocal with regards to what he's doing with his money, how he's doing it, and loves to pump and dump. Now, if you look at other companies like Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, I'm just looking at some of the big banks, or other major A-list companies, they've been quiet. They haven't disclosed any holdings. Earnings season starts next week. And once those filings are made, there will be a lot of people, not me, but a lot of people looking through those financial statements, all of them, to find out who is holding Bitcoin, because now it will be disclosed. My guess is this list that you see here will more than double. I think you're going to see a lot of companies putting a little bit of exposure on their company's balance sheets into Bitcoin. And the reason for that, going to Lisa's question from yesterday and kind of the circle back around here, talk track for the whole show, is hedging. Number one, you're hedging against keeping billions of dollars, US dollars, on your balance sheets that are going down in value. I wrote some numbers down earlier just to give you an idea. Right now, if you looked at the balance sheets for Apple, $76 billion on their balance sheet. Microsoft's $131 billion. Amazon, $84 billion. Facebook, $62 billion. Google, $136 billion. You're looking at roughly $500 billion sitting on the books in cash for those companies. If they did what Tesla did and just went to, let's say, 8% of that cash converted to Bitcoin, where is it going to go? Or just digital assets, period, right? Maybe it's Ethereum, maybe it's something else. Bitcoin would probably be the most logical target. You'll see these crypto assets continue to soar. And I think that Elon Musk set the precedent here by jumping on that space and making it very public that, look, I want to get out of just having US dollars. I want to hedge my currency risk exposure because I'm now transacting in yuan, British pound, euros, and Canadian dollars because of our factories. In order to offset some of that, I'm going to go to Bitcoin, which might not be as susceptible to those currency valuation movements. Where does Tesla go to purchase Bitcoin? They go to somebody like Coinbase. Coinbase Institutional would be my guess as to where they did it. Coinbase has an institutional desk which will handle large transactions like that. Be a great place to work, right? All right, that was one long, I think that was a 35-minute rant on Bitcoin. Let me take a sip of water here. So that's it. That's why they're doing it. It makes sense to me. I've always wondered, like, you look at the balance sheet for Google and you go, $136 billion on your balance sheet? Why would you keep that kind of cash? Put your capital to use. Now, could Google go out and just buy the SPX, buy SPY, the ETF? Why not, right? Why not just buy SPY and just hold on to it. They could do that. I think they'd have to file and disclose what their holdings are. But this is an attempt for these guys to put it into something else. And why not in Bitcoin, since if you look at the math behind it, you can look back at the show I did last year talking about why Bitcoin will be $100,000 by 2023, by the end of 2022, really January 1st, 2023. I think the math spells it all out. And I think Elon Musk sees the writing on the wall. So the more that people like Tesla buy Bitcoin and just put it on their balance sheet, that now removes his 48,000 Bitcoin from the supply that we talked about. Because he's probably not selling it. He'll just keep it on his books. And now that number will probably be growing, since a Tesla, it ranges anywhere from 1 to 3 Bitcoins. And he'll be adding up those Bitcoins. And I think he made the point, we have no intention of selling those Bitcoins. We'll keep them on our books. So that number for Tesla will continue to grow. It should be interesting. Jeff says, is Coinbase just the Robinhood for crypto? No. No, not the Robinhood for crypto. Because Robinhood is free commission, right? And where they screw you is on execution. Coinbase charges you commissions. So I wouldn't say it's the Robinhood. I would say it's the entry level. It's the gateway, right? It's where you would get started. But if you know anything about the fees, the transactions, the speed, the spreads, you wouldn't use Coinbase base version, like I've shown you many times. You would use Coinbase Pro, you'd use Binance, you'd use Kraken, somewhere where the fees are significantly lower. And you have the ability to negotiate, be a maker or taker of liquidity in the marketplace. Lisa says, Bloomberg says 400,000 this year for Bitcoin. I think that's a bit lofty. I think $100,000 would not be that far of a stretch. I mean, when you look at the move that's happened from 3 months ago, you're looking at the market capitalization of cryptocurrencies has gone from 1 trillion to 2 trillion in just under 4 months. Could it happen by the end of the year again? Yeah, it could. I think 100,000 would probably be a slightly lofty target to get by the end of the year. But hey, obviously I'm all for it because I'm holding. If it got to 400,000, I may be doing my show from somewhere else. I might be like, it might not be as structured. I might just kind of randomly come on and do a show every now and again, but I might be somewhere else in the world with that kind of money in my position in Bitcoin. Okay, what else do I got here? There was a bunch of questions that came through earlier, so I apologize. I'm going to try to go back through and see if I can find any of these questions that came through. Remy says, is Kraken the only exchange to buy Tron not available on Coinbase? It's not the only one. Out of the big two in the U.S., it is, right? So if you're trading on Kraken, you can buy Tron. I initially bought my Tron on Binance. I bought my Tron on Binance and then moved it over to Kraken. Don't worry, Reving. It's not an unrelated question. It's crypto. It just had to be saved to the end in the crypto space. Let's see what other questions do I have here. And again, if you're new, make sure if you're sending questions, just 2 question marks before it so I can scroll back through. Very easy to see. Isn't it very limiting to only have 21 million? Okay, great. That's a great question. Is it limiting? Let me show you here part of the problem. And I have this issue every time someone brings up a cheap stock and goes, dude, I should buy this stock. It's only trading at 17 cents, man. Why would I buy Amazon at $2,000 or $3,000? Oh, he's serenity now. Drives me nuts. Here's why. Because a lot of people don't think about I go to World Coin Index here. A lot of people don't think about float when you think about stocks, right? The float is the number of shares that are out there that you can buy or sell. It could be 10 million, could be a trillion out there. You got to look it up so you know what the prices are. So I'm going to go through here and go to home. And this is just World Coin Index, guys. If you look here, number of coins, all right? Look at Bitcoin. Right now there's 18.6 million Bitcoins. It's on the left-hand or right-hand side over here. Then you have Ethereum at 115 million. Ripple, 45 billion. So Ripple is 30x, 30 times as many Ripple's Bitcoin out there than Ripple out there than Bitcoin. Actually, it might even be more than that. That's it's 300x. Excuse me. To me, that is a huge supply difference. So all those people that say, "Oh, Ripple's going to get up to $50,000 a coin or $1,000," they have no clue what they're talking about because you have 45 billion of them. You got to look at just pure market capitalization. If you had 45 billion that got up to 1,000, you're looking at $45 trillion market cap. Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that one. Keep scrolling down here. There's another one. Here's 1 billion for EOS. BitTorrent, 659 billion. I mean, there's a couple out here They're just quadrillion. Let's see if they bring up, what was that one called? It was called Shiba. This is a new one that everyone's going Google over it. It's just stupid. This is a stupid one. It doesn't even tell me how many coins are out there. Where's the number of coins? It doesn't even have it because it's in the quadrillions, right? There's that many out there, quadrillions. I love the fact this thing is just dropping and dropping and dropping. You can buy it on one exchange as Uniswap. This thing is just absolutely junk. You can only buy it with Ethereum. Garbage. Anyway, the point I was getting at here is, why is it too little? No, because remember, you don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. You can buy a Satoshi, which is 0.000001. Right? That's the smallest amount that you could buy. So there's plenty that you could buy right now. You don't have to buy a full Bitcoin. By limiting supply, what you do is you create scarcity. And scarcity is part of the reason that you're going to see Bitcoin do well. Now, let's see, what's the most on here? I'm just so there's a few in here that only have like this one has 36,000 coins altogether, and its last price is 41,000. I don't even know what Yearn.finance does, but these are some that are very limited. Like Dash is one that I actually really like. I like the company. I like what they do. I like how they're pushing for transactionability. They only have 10 million. So that scarcity helps drive price, because if it becomes popular, or a Kardashian or Kanye West tweets about how great Dash is, people will go to buy Dash, and there's limited supply out there. They won't be able to buy it without moving prices up. All right, so hopefully it came out good. What else do I got here? Some coins use a bonding curve to control inflation. Correct. I'm trying to look for other stuff that come through specifically. What makes Tron have that big jump? Which is, okay, that's a great one. So what does Tron have the big jump in popularity? So a lot of these new projects, these new DeFi projects, remember DeFi is decentralized finance, and usually it's done through somebody else's blockchain, right? So Ethereum is the number one for all the DeFi projects out there right now, which is why I think you've seen Ethereum move up. Because if I wanted to start a DeFi project, it's decentralized finance like Uniswap or something else, I'm not going to create my own blockchain and have all the logistics. I'm going to plug straight into Ethereum's blockchain and just use their system that's already in place. Right now, Ethereum has a problem with their fees. Their fees are what is called gas. GAS is how you would pay their fee. And the fees have been getting very expensive for Ethereum because so many projects are tying into Ethereum's blockchain. With EOS or with Tron, you have almost no fees whatsoever. They're very, very, very small. You have faster execution, but not a lot of projects are on those blockchains. So what Justin Sun, love him or hate him, has been doing is pushing big time to get people to plug into the Tron blockchain. And so as those projects come on, he's now, I can't remember the number, he just posted out something like $20 billion worth of assets are now DeFi set up on the Tron network. So as that happens, you have more dependency on the Tron network, more companies plugging in their projects to it, then you start to build that codependency, which is where Ethereum has a lockhold on it right now, because if Ethereum goes down, you're talking thousands of other tokens cease to exist because Ethereum's down. So obviously there's a vested interest, not in just Ethereum organization maintaining Ethereum, but all those other projects. Tron is trying to get there. Now, if you had to put them side by side, I don't know the technology per se. However, from a speed of execution, Tron's going to be faster and cheaper. But does it make it the best one right now? I don't know. Yeah, there you go. Brandon says if he helps advance crypto adoption, he is okay. Then you got to love him because he's out there drumming the table every day on DeFi and boosting the visibility of crypto assets. He's a kooky guy. He's kind of weird, but you know what? I'm okay with him. Would you recommend Coinbase as a platform if you want to use it as a way for players to tip? Is the transfer easy? What do you mean for players to tip? Would you recommend Coinbase as a platform if you want to use it as a way for players to tip? You mean to give you money? No. I'm not sure if I understand that one. Yes, Tron has a huge supply, which is why it's also trading at 10 cents. Right? It's much cheaper than just about every other crypto out there. I still don't know if I understand what the pay tips is. Okay, so if it's easy to transfer from one person to another, no, I wouldn't use. if you want to transfer from one person to another, what I would recommend is you set up a digital wallet. Like, it depends on how convenient you want your transactions to be. So, for example, if you have an account at Coinbase, you'd have to log into Coinbase's website and send it around, do whatever you like. You can also do it with an app, right? There's a Coinbase app. I use an app called BRD. There's also Jax is another good one. There's Edge Wallet. So these are different wallets you could have on your phone. So, for example, let's say with Jax can have hundreds of different cryptocurrencies on there. I could take my Bitcoin that I bought on, let's say, Coinbase or Kraken, send it to this Jax wallet and have it on my phone. Then if I was, at lunch or something and someone's like, hey, you owe me $30, I can just hit a button and send them a piece of Bitcoin worth whatever amount that I owe them and send it to their device. So that makes it much, much easier to send assets around is by having an app on your phone. My only thing is, guys, if I owe you money, so let's say we end up going out to dinner or have drinks somewhere and you pick up the tab and I go, I'll send you the money. I'm not sending you my crypto. All right, I'm going to be sending you through Venmo. I'm sending US dollars because US dollars are being devalued and my crypto has been going up. So at this point, I'm just a hodler keeping it. Oh, okay. Good. Okay, thanks, Koja. So I think if that's what you mean, basically what you're saying is you get a referral fee, right? You get a referral fee if someone signs up at Coinbase. I post my referral link every now and again, and if you have not opened a Coinbase account, I can give you a referral link, and they will give you, I think it's $10 worth of Bitcoin if you open up an account. Same thing at BlockFi. So if you want to open up any one of those accounts, feel free to let me know. I'll post a. I feel like I'm spamming or I'm slumming over here when I say, hey, use my referral link. I'm just not a big referral link kind of person. However, if you are, looking to get into it, why not? You get money, I get money too. Where's my share? Invite friends. No worries, Alex. Let me paste this right here. So there's the Coinbase. So if you don't have a Coinbase account, you can just click that, and that'll get you $10 worth of free Bitcoin, and I get $10 worth of free Bitcoin. So that makes it easy. Can you buy XRP through Coinbase? No, a great question, Dana. Right now, XRP is on lockdown on just about every exchange out there. The reason being is the SEC makes the argument that Ripple is a security, that XRP is a security. Therefore, if somebody like Coinbase was to sell XRP, they're selling an unregulated security, and Coinbase could get in trouble. So most of the exchanges that were selling XRP and allowed you to trade it, they put a block on it. Now, I have a bunch of Ripple at Coinbase. I can keep it there. I can store it, but no transactions. That will probably disappear soon, the ability to make transactions. You saw the big spike that happened in Ripple over the past 48 hours. I mean, it's been a pretty huge run up. That is because the SEC now looks like they're reaching an agreement with Ripple, and then once this is put behind them, then it's full throttle into the crypto sphere. So it should be fun. What else we got here? I want to have them pay me tips through Coinbase rather than cash. Use their money to buy. Yeah, you could do that way, but there's not really a way to tip. You could just have somebody send you. You can't have somebody send you US dollars at Coinbase. They'd have to send you crypto or digital assets. So what you could do is you could send it's be tricky to do. Like they could tip you in Venmo, and then you have to convert that, send that to an exchange and then convert it. That's a pain in the butt. But no, there isn't something that you could just send in there. Someone sends you dollars and it converts automatically. There are some swap sites showing up now that are starting to do that, but I'm not that familiar with them all right now. No worries. Chuck says, do you have an opinion about TradeStation's crypto account offerings? I do not. I have not even played with it whatsoever. Unfortunately, and I should have, given my how I've just opened up accounts at every single brokerage firm. I have a TradeStation. I have multiple TradeStation accounts, but they're not actually in my. They're in my doghouse right now because they keep bugging me every few months saying that I'm a professional and trying to charge me professional fees, which is crap. So I'm not in good terms with TradeStation right now. My account will probably be closed here soon if they don't get out of my way. But no, I have not, Chuck. And I don't know who they clear through. They've got to have a link to some exchange out there, but I will dig into that one for you because I've been meaning to do it. Yes, I agree, Brendan, 100%. that everyone should check out DeFi, which is decentralized finance, and yield farming, which you can do on a variety of sites. But I'll save that for another show. I'm looking at the clock right now and realize I've gone a full hour. I did not think I was going to go a full hour. I'm trying to cut this show back to 30 minutes, damn it. I just can't seem to do it. It's all Big Evan Brendan. Any thoughts on Chinese digital currency? Is it like Bitcoin? Nope, absolutely not. Bitcoin is decentralized. What you have with the Chinese digital currency is it's a private blockchain. Remember, there's 3 types of blockchains. There's a public blockchain, which is Bitcoin, which means everybody can have access to the blockchain and see what everybody's doing. There is a private blockchain, which means one entity has it. That's the Chinese government has access to that one. And then the second one is it's a consortium blockchain, which is what you're going to start to see here in the US. My assumption would be that the Fed coin will actually not be a private blockchain. It will be a consortium blockchain. A consortium blockchain is where you have a group, a small select group. And my guess is that the Fed coin in the US will be a consortium blockchain, and each member bank, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, you name it, because they're part of the Fed, right? The Fed is basically made up by member banks, that the member banks will have a node, and that will be the network. So no, it's very different. In China, you have central control in one that's a private blockchain. Really no benefit there to the average person. Rob, thank you so 10 in pounds nonetheless. You're awesome, Rob. Thank you so much. Oh, make my day. Merlin, when are you buying Coinbase IPO? I'm not buying the Coinbase IPO. I think I've made that clear. I don't chase IPOs, and it'll be fun to watch, guys. On the 14th, I encourage you to watch it. Do your best to stay out of it because it's going to be one wild ride. That thing is going to be moving so much. The hype around it right now, I mean, I'm loving it because the hype around Coinbase, I think, has been part of the reason we've seen cryptos run so heavily over the last month. I also think it's what's going to cause BACT, BAKKT, to have a big pop. Now, you take that into conjunction. BAKKT is the company that is being brought to market by VIH, which is a SPAC that I currently hold. I think that popularity in conjunction with, as earnings season rolls out, this next quarter's earnings season, which starts next week, a lot of companies will be talking about how they are putting money on their balance sheets in crypto, not necessarily Bitcoin, but in digital assets. I think that also is going to have another big move up for the acceptance of crypto assets on a company's balance sheets. And the day that we get an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Facebook saying, hey, we're moving 10% of our cash there, oh, that's the day where I might actually sell a little bit. It'll be a huge run up. All right. Do I expect Bitcoin's price to stabilize in a few years? If yes, why would companies hold their cash in Bitcoin then? I don't expect it to stabilize. I expect it to keep on moving up, maybe not at such an accelerated rate. Remember, we're talking about corporations getting involved with it and keeping it on their books. That removes some from supply. So the more corporations like Tesla put Bitcoin on their books, they're shelving it. They're putting it away. It's no longer part of the tradable supply out there. So that now 21 million drops to 15 million. Then it drops to 13 million. And then it becomes much more transactional. See, most of us are from developed nations, right? Most of us are from developed countries where we don't need Bitcoin to live every day. There's a lot of countries around the world that don't have good infrastructure, that do not have good bankings or financial systems. They have cell phones, and they're putting Bitcoin and digital assets on their phone. That's how they're living and transacting. That's a big difference. And the more that is accepted around the world, Bitcoin and things like that, I think you're just looking at much more public adoption, and sky's the limit on it. You know, you joke about it being $1 million asset. I think that is actually a potential reality much further down the road. All right, let me go to wrap up here. Okay. Oh, I didn't. Oh, great. I took the images, but I didn't. I was so busy, I didn't actually go and put in the economic calendar for tomorrow. So, earnings-wise, there was nothing noteworthy tomorrow. Constellation Brands actually reports earnings tomorrow. I think that's probably the major one reporting tomorrow. But other than that, it's all quiet. Next week, we really start with the big names for earnings season. Now, today, the stuff that was noteworthy, obviously, you had FOMC speakers and Biden was speaking. You saw crude oil inventories take a little bit of a drop. That was good, but we're still on crude oil, stuck in that tight little range. We'll look at some of those charts tomorrow. For tomorrow's show, you've got Chairman Powell speaking, and that's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time. He's got a speech. You also have unemployment claims coming out, which are expected to drop again, sub 700,000 this time. For the rest of the world, you have unemployment rate for the Swiss franc, trade balance for the euro, and that pretty much outlines the big stuff going on for tomorrow. All right, I think that's going to just about do it for me. Rob, again, thank you so much for the contribution. I do appreciate it. When is back going to go actually public with VIH? Don't know. They have not given a timeline for it, but my guess is they'll do it very quickly after. I would not be surprised to see within a couple of weeks of Coinbase's. Why? That hysteria of Coinbase, and everyone will be talking about Coinbase, and all of a sudden, hey, here's another one, boom, and then people jump on that. I'm excited for it. I hope it'll do well. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Again, Lisa, thank you so much for the question. That spurred you got a whole show topic on one question. If you have something you want me to discuss, I don't have any guests the rest of the week, so it's been an all-me week. Hopefully I don't bore the death out of you guys, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions or show topics, let me know what they are. Email's on the screen. It's TraderMerlin@gmail.com. You can just send it on in there, and the sooner you get it in, the more likely I will have some time to prep and build that show. Hope you guys all have a fantastic evening. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.